morning, everybody. We have managed to find something very special once again. Before he disappears, look who is still here. Good morning, Mr. Thamba. Aren't you beautiful? There he is. And he suddenly became camera shy. When has he ever been camera shy? There you can see where he's got the remains of his kudu kill of the small baby. There it is up the tree doing a very nice balancing act. So at least it's a slightly better tree from the one he had before, but still not the best kind of tree for hoisting a carcass and feeding. Coco Kitty, I'm pretty sure Tani would know Thamba. I mean, it's her last litter. There would definitely be some behavior or some interaction between them. Yeah, I mean, it's all about smells and communication out here, more so than visual. We're going to go around because he's just moved through the bushes here. So I think those smells will stay with him for a long time. They don't lose the sense of smell. Okay, sorry, Seds has got a better view of him than I do. So just hold on with us while we reposition. He's just lying up under the bushes here. I don't know if he's having a toilet or if he's busy looking at something. Justin, yes, we have been thoroughly spoilt by Mr. Thamba. Thoroughly spoilt. What's it been, 3 days now of solid Thamba. Absolutely incredible. It went from me not seeing this young male at all to suddenly seeing him a whole bunch, which is quite exciting from a presenter point of view, because I think I can recognize him now. Zena, he did appear to go into stealth mode there, but don't worry, we have got his... Senzo was watching him very closely. It's very easy to lose a leopard in this long grass. If they wanted to disappear, they would be gone. He looked to just be having a little bit of a... He's going to walk right up to the car. He looked to be having a little bit of just of an ablution break there this morning. And as I said, the temperatures are quite mild, so it's a perfect time of day for these cats to be moving around. And I'm not sure what he's got there. Oh, what has he got, Sens? Can you tell? That's an elephant dung there in front of him, but he's possibly got some of his kudu on the floor. Looks like, I can't really see. Definitely chewing something. Maybe he's got the kudu head or a piece of the kudu that fell on the floor. Ah, okay. Okay, Sen says he's probably eating the stomach that the hyenas left behind. I didn't notice him leave any stomach the other day, or the other evening when we were here. But isn't that interesting? Desperate times, you're going to go and eat the intestines and stomach of an animal. It's quite popular for some people to eat tripe out there. I'm not a big fan. But what a start to our morning. What a start to our Sunday. Thamba's in the same place, which makes life very easy. He does still have a little bit of the kill in the tree there. There didn't seem to be too much of it up there. Ooh, you see that on his ear? He's got a really fat tick on his left ear on the inside. Look at that. That doesn't look very comfortable. Ooh, 2 on the outside. 3 on the outside. Now those are female ticks that are gorging themselves off of his blood, and they will fall off soon into the long grass and form. So those ticks will fall off and we will get an infestation of pepper ticks at some stage. But B. Wilson would like to know if the hyenas can jump and get that carcass out the tree. It is too high for them. It is probably about close to 2 meters off the ground, while where the leg is hanging. So very difficult for the hyenas to get that high. I know there's that footage of Tristan with that impala carcass in the tree that the hyenas are jumping and ripping into shreds. That's quite marvelous to see. I've never seen anything like that before. But he does have it a little bit higher than that one, but I don't think it's reachable for the hyena. The only thing he would risk it is if Tani decided to come and have a little peek. She would definitely be able to steal it, if she's brave enough. Interesting, Jamie. That's a good question. Is he using smaller trees that lions can't climb? I don't think he's purposefully choosing that. He's just, there's an energy and a weighing up energy component there that tree is only about 20 yards from the previous tree he had, and the next biggest tree is probably 40 to 50 yards away. So from an energy point of view, I think he's just selecting the nearest tree possible. And as he gets more experience, I think he might start learning that, like he did with this kudu, he's not going to lose it if he happens to tree it up a suitable tree. Oof, that wind has just changed, and we've just got the foulest smell has just hit us in the nose. We might get some nose plugs, and while we do so, let's go over to Taylor and see what tracks she has for you. Yes, thank you, Scotty. I hope you managed to find some big cats for us there. I just get the feeling that the lions calling in that area are probably the Birmingham boys, maybe north of our boundary. So who knows what we might find that side. I know Scott and Taylor are looking very hard for big cats this morning, and wouldn't that be marvellous to add to the sighting of this beautiful Thamba, who has decided to put his head down. Maureen would like to know if lions have larger territories than leopards, and essentially I would say yes. Lions are a bigger animal and they have a larger food resource. So essentially food resource is one of the determining factors behind the size of a territory. And I'm not saying there's less food in this area for lions and for leopard, but the leopard is a solitary animal and only needs an impala or so every few days to a week, whereas a lion pride needs essentially an impala twice a day, or a wildebeest every day, or a zebra, for example. So the area with which they need to cover needs to have a larger number of animals in it, and the larger the area, the more animals. So yes, lions would have a larger pride territory, and they move on to Djuma, and they go all the way down to Lower Gowrie and all the way into Buffelshoek, so a much bigger territory where we see a number of leopard species or leopard individuals having their territories almost pretty much just within Djuma itself. So the numbers are very difficult to say because there's still a lot of research going on the actual size of territories, and they can vary quite substantially with the species and also where you find them. For example, in the savannah, the territory sizes of both leopard and lion are far smaller than they would be in a more sort of Kalahari type drier savanna ecosystem. In the Okavango Delta or in Namibia, the territory sizes there of both of the cats, including hyena, are far larger because the prey are spread over a much larger area. Possibly not the Okavango itself, but the Kalahari and into the Namibian deserts. Definitely much differences there because of, as I said, food resources. So that is where the security comes from. And here in Djuma, we have a huge prey base for leopards. Here is another couple of ticks. Oh my word, look at the size of them. 4 of them at least. They must be really, really itchy. Oh my word, he's covered in them. He needs some attention. He needs to go to the spa for the day and get some TLC. Very difficult for him to get those off on his own. You have to scratch with his back paw. So we're going to stay here with this golden cat, and let's go over to Taylor with her golden mane of hair and see what interesting and amazing view she has for you. Yes, we are back. Well, we're almost back with Thamba. Let me just let this other vehicle come out. And the reason for that is obviously we've got 3 vehicles busy tracking, and Nix needs someone to have a little bit of content. So we're going to leave Hukumuri's tracks for the moment, come back in, see if we can have Thamba. I know all of the viewers back home are not disappointed at this decision. It would be great to find him, of course, but with 3 people out tracking, it leaves very little animals to see. So let's go in and watch this beautiful cat. There are 2 other vehicles in the sighting. One of the landowners from the north, and then one of the Vuyatela Galago Lodge vehicles. So just give me a moment to get into a nice position here. Good morning. Okay, I'm sure we are going to be here for a little while longer than the others, so we'll get just a little view of him over there. There he is once again in the long grass. Maureen would like to know who named the leopards, and essentially what happens in this area is that where the den site of a leopard is found, so for example Thandi denned and had Thamba on Djuma, and so the Djuma guides are responsible for naming it. Wild Earth doesn't play too much of a role in that, apart from the facilitating of it and maybe a little bit of a debate, but it's essentially the local guides such as Rexon and Tex. Rexon, who you all know, Herbie as well, who you know, and they kind of come up with names that are quite relevant to the animal's behavior, where they were found, maybe something to do with the lineage, the mother or the grandmother, and then those names are put forward, and then the best one and most suitable one chosen. So you might hear a vehicle there, just trying to navigate out without smashing me. They've got quite long wheelbases, and we've got a short wheelbase, which makes our positioning very easy. Good morning. Hello, Rex. Have a good morning, folks. There we go. So Rex is busy leaving. It will give us another little bit of space to reposition. Chris, you seem to have missed yesterday's show. What happened is we had Thamba just over here behind us 2 nights ago, or 2 days ago. Herbie and Taylor on foot with Senzo found him with an enormous female kudu. We came back in the afternoon, because in the morning when they found him, the belly was extended or distended, very bloated. And when I came back in the afternoon, once again with Senzo, we found not only the kudu, but we found this youngster hidden in the bushes behind the adult kudu. And we spent some time with Thamba that afternoon, and it appears that this youngster was actually either stillborn or was actually removed from the mother's womb during the day at some point. And we found it hiding under the bushes. Later in the afternoon, we went out to allow some viewers some time, or allow the other vehicles some time. Sens, can you get this vulture that's landed just behind us on the tree? While Sens recaps on that vulture there, apologies for the aerial. I can just reposition the vehicle slightly to move the aerial. Well, there we go. There's a hooded vulture. He's looking around for whatever scraps might be just down at the base of the tree that it's sitting on, is where the kill actually happened. And then the kill was dragged just a few meters further to the left under the tree. And so we came back in the afternoon. Thamba had hoisted that little kudu calf into the tree behind us, above where the mother was situated. And then we left. That evening, a few of us after dinner came back out. Scott, myself, Faith, who is one of the directors, Nikki, another director, and Conrad, one of the technical guys, and we witnessed hyenas join the fray, one at a time. They came in silently. Thamba jumped up the tree to where his little kudu carcass was, and he watched in vain as 4 hyenas erupted onto the scene and completely devoured that kudu carcass in what seemed to be about 30-40 minutes. Very, very short going. If you're following Scott on Instagram, he's actually posted a very nice video of the scene. Obviously, it's edited and cut. It was a little bit longer than his video portrays, but the carnage that took place is very well documented. And the forlorn look of Thamba, who was sitting in the tree only meters above the quarreling and squabbling hyena, just looked on in vain as those very opportunistic scavengers devoured his very nice kudu female. But I think one of the most interesting topics of that afternoon, or of the evening, that Nikki and everyone was sort of batting their face with, was as those hyenas attacked that carcass. Those of you who watched in the day and saw how many flies were on that kudu, as those hyenas attacked that carcass, they opened up the stomach, and all of those flies that had probably gone dormant for the evening erupted in a haze of buzzing noises around our heads. It was quite something to see, and I think we all went home and had a shower, because it was quite foul. So that is it. Thamba was up the tree all of the night before, while he waited and watched the hyena squabble and remove everything, and then he kindly removed his kudu carcass into a tree probably 20 to 30 yards further east from where he was, and not the best tree in the world, but better than the one he had. And he is standing guard here. There's not too much left on that carcass, apart from some hooves and some skin. And can you look at that left leg that's hanging there, Sens? There's a bit of a mark there, isn't there? Where the skin is actually lacking fur. I don't know if you can clearly see that. Okay, so while we try and figure out a little bit more about this kudu carcass, let's go to Taylor, who's got some bones of her own. Thank you, Scotty and Taylor, in your endeavours. I hope you manage to come right with whatever you decide to do. We have, once again, a very nice visual of this cat. He every now and again has a look up into the tree to make sure no one has stolen it from him. He is a gorgeous young male, and it is very hard having to sit here and look at him, spend time with him. It really is difficult. Sorry, Nix, thanks for sending me back. We do enjoy spending time with these cats, really do. And what a wonderful time we've had. He's been here for 3 days. Now, this is the third morning, I think. So that is quite something for a cat. Okay, that is a vulture that just landed on the branch there that gave Thamba a little bit of a fright. Another hooded vulture. Hooded vultures are, in my opinion, the most reliable vultures when it comes to finding meat. All the other vultures from the day before have vanished. We had a look at the area of the carcass the other day. There's not a single bone that we can see anywhere. Mina would like to know, why do vultures not have feathers on the neck? They don't have feathers on the neck essentially because they stick that head and neck deep into a foul and disgusting bloody carcass. And they don't want to soil any feathers. The feathers on the head would be quite difficult for them to clean, and so they have just a very sort of, almost like a bald head. There's a bit of sort of downy feathers on there, but they're much easier to clean and to maintain than the body feathers. And the primary objective of the neck and the head is to get deep into a very rotten and smelly carcass. So that is the primary reason. But it does lead to problems with thermoregulation, because they obviously lose a lot of heat off of the head. But most vultures have got quite a nice sort of neck collar type scarf, which keeps the throat warm, and they can tuck their head back into sort of their shoulder area to enable them to keep that head nice and cool. Nice and warm, should I say. Isn't that a pretty animal? Cat Bragg asks if birds get internal parasites. I'm sure they do. But I don't know. I really don't know too much about that. I mean, I learned the other day that all reptiles have salmonella. So I've only ever known of chickens to have salmonella. So I have no doubt that birds themselves have all sorts of interesting things in the tummy, but the digestive system of a vulture is unbelievable. If you had to park your car underneath some vultures and they defecated on your vehicle, it would strip the paint. So don't ever do that. I've never done it. I've only been told, and I'm not willing to test that. Because paint job on my car is bad enough as it is currently. So I think they've got a very strong constitution. But it's definitely something I'm going to look into, because that is quite an interesting question. Lacey, I've never seen vultures feeding on a carcass inside of a tree. They really struggle. If Sens can go back to this carcass here, they really struggle to launch themselves out of that. they could possibly get in, but then flying out is impossible. Very, very difficult. So where you saw that vulture perched and the other one perched, they're on a ledge which enables them to just jump and flap the wings, and they are off the ground. But if it tried to climb into the small tree, it would get tangled and probably cause itself some injury. And it's also why when vultures nest, they generally have them right on top of the tree, so as to also alleviate any branches snagging their wings. They've got very large wings for their size to enable them to fly effortlessly, but that means that they're not very agile in the trees. Okay, so internal parasites of poultry are nematodes, roundworms, tapeworms, cestodes, flukes, trematodes, and protozoa. And roundworms are common in waterfowl and also many wild birds. So definitely wild birds would have roundworms, and a lot of that would be through, I actually wouldn't know where they get the roundworm from. Interesting. Morning Glory zoomed in on the dam cam between 1 and 4 this morning and distinctively heard 2 different cats sawing. So, as Scott has mentioned, he had tracks of hukumuri and also tandi somewhere in the drainage system there. So it's not impossible that he wasn't calling and then her reciprocating. I don't think she's in the reproductive state yet, but maybe she was just demarcating a territory. Sometimes female leopards will call to attract the male for mating, or maybe she called first as a territory and that actually attracted him, because if she was seen on the dam cam at 1 and he was far away by that stage, if he heard her, he would have moved into the area in anticipation of encountering the beautiful female that he undoubtedly has smelt in the area. And to hear her calling and singing her evening song would have been too much for him to resist coming into the area to try and maybe reciprocate and find if she had any feelings for this very sort of good-looking, scary-eyed cat. So I'm sure whatever calls happened would have put this young boy on edge. He wouldn't quite know what to have made of it, but I'm sure he was quiet. So Taylor has dispatched her waterbuck horns at the tent, and she is headed back south, and let's see what updates she has for you. Well, I hope you managed to, they do get up, Taylor, and they come back in search of some fame and fortune in the form of being Safari Live presenters, because they are very famous. We had such marvellous views of the Nkuhumas last night. Playful. Scott was quite envious when he got back. He said it's nice to have them doing such magical stuff so early in the afternoon, and it was such a nice way to end the show as we followed them moving away from us. I thought yesterday's afternoon show was quite magical in how Djuma was found randomly, with obviously the anticipation developed through from Taylor calling in the audio or the sound he was making, and then Scott rushing into the area, and then them finding him, and then obviously us having the Nkuhumas climbing up or standing up and walking away out of shot as we closed the show. Really, really was quite a nice sort of climax and build-up to that ending, which I really enjoyed, followed on by the tracking and finding them on foot in the morning, which really, really made my day. But here we have a very flat and lazy leopard, but all good. He has done all the work he needs to 3 days ago, and now all he has to do is eat and sleep, have some toilet time, and drink half of Vuyatela Dam last night, I believe. He spent a very long time drinking, and I'm sure a lot of that's got to do with the fact that he was up a tree with marauding hyenas at the base for a good part of the evening. Just want to go and pluck those ticks off the back of his head, don't you? Shame. Well, we did see, when I saw Hasana 2 months ago, he had a couple big ones like that on his ear. And then they promptly disappear, so I'm sure he either scraped them off or they fell off to lay eggs. Lacey, a very good question. Would Thandi fight to the death to protect her cub? And it has been known for leopards to do that, to confront the male that is intentionally wanting to kill their cub. I have seen video before of a female actually going up the tree to protect her cub that had gone up the tree. The male went up after the cub, the female went up, and the male ended up taking her out the tree onto the ground and dispatching her there. It was very, very sad to see. Very, very violent. But it is part and parcel of nature out here, and the new genetics that come in with the male is very, very important. Very, very important for the genetics of the area. So a big male like Djuma or Hukumuri coming in and bringing their genetics is very, very important to the perpetuation of this leopard line going forward. And as I said, if Thamba does stay and ends up mating with Thandi, the after effects just aren't ideal. You know, it's not a natural thing to happen, and he should at some point be pushed away as he starts responding to these territorial calls of his males and starts maybe trying to figure out his own place. But who knows, Hukumuri might end up just chasing him before he even decides to do so himself. He's getting to that age of independence, normally around 22 months, and he clearly is doing very well. There's Kudu Biltong drying in the tree there. He's a seemingly very successful cat, even though I only saw him for my first time 2 days ago. You see how alert he is. Patrick wants to know if a female leopard will go into a false estrus. I've never heard of false estrus, but in cats, something known as induced ovulation, which means that they mate for an extended period of time without guaranteeing fertilization of the egg. Definitely in lions and in leopards. I have heard of lions being able to induce an abortion if pressure is on and male is moving in to an area and the coalition gets toppled and she's pregnant. It has been recorded that she will actually abort out of the fact that if she does give birth, it will get killed. But I've never heard of a false estrus. The estrus comes in monthly if the animal is not pregnant or lactating, and she will mate regularly, but not guaranteed. I think that adds a bit of confusion to the males. They don't really know if it's his cub or not, but if he is the resident territorial male, I think he seems to assume it is. Okay, so we're going to go back over to Scotty D, whose bushwalk is turning out to be a game drive, and let's see what update he has for you. Thanks very much. I hope Taylor managed to catch those elephants. So I was just doing some reading to try and follow up a little bit on what we were talking about false estrus, and it doesn't seem to be one in leopards that I can find as of yet. But definitely that false estrus is very well known in domestic cats after they've been sort of fixed, so to speak, and they generally have a bit of they come into heat and it freaks everybody out. But I don't think there's any way of them getting pregnant after that. It just seems to be something that the body is doing. Jamie, the question on everyone's mind is, at what stage will Thandi's cub be safe from Hukumuri? Probably by the age of about 1.5 to 2, when it's able to sort of fend for itself and move away. That's a good time, because any time before 2 years, she's kind of unreproductive because of that cub. So he would try and kill it any time he could, because it would bring her into estrus. But, what's going on? What are you seeing, my boy? He suddenly had a thought that someone was coming for his food. 2 vultures have landed on the tree far behind us. Yeah, there are some vultures that landed in the tree opposite from where he originally had the kill. It's possible that their movements and fluttering wings got his attention, and he's done with losing his carcasses. But also any sort of movement that happens will cause him to probably jump into a tree, because it could be something that could cause him harm. As we saw when we were watching him on that first night, how as soon as a hyena approached, he quickly made for the trees, because he can't afford to have any interaction with them. Aren't you beautiful, boy? Pixelpox would like to know at what age a leopard will have their last litter. It's hard to say, really, but I mean, Tundi's about 12 now, and they reckon she's just had one cub because of her age. And Tristan, one of the guides here, is quite certain it's probably going to be her last litter. So they're kind of just getting on in years, and it's not just the inability, or I think the body starts not being able to have as many cubs as before, and also they start struggling to provide enough food for the cub. So it seems to be about maybe 12, 13, but I honestly don't know. But Tristan, who is quite versed with the leopards here, seems to think that Tundi this is probably her last litter. But I haven't read that anywhere. I might do some reading and find out for you as well. Maybe anyone else out there, any of the viewers who knows the leopards here very well, can maybe know at what age they last saw the leopard reproducing. What can you smell, boy? There he is. Okay, so we're going to stay with this large predator, and we're going to go to Taylor, who's got herself a very small one. Yes, he has, and he is having his breakfast. He is very awkwardly positioning himself in this russet bush willow. Not renowned for perching on, very good for walking sticks, but the branches are not really large and really broad, as in the marulas and jackalberries, trees that are a little bit more favoured by these cats for body positioning. As you can see, he can't even lie down. He's kind of perched quite precariously in the tree as he continues to munch on his venison breakfast. Yeah, just over 2 meters off the ground, the base of the feet are. Indigo Girl would like to know if leopards have parasites and things in the fur like lions do, and yes, they are very dirty. And if you do touch a leopard, it's very important to wash your hands afterwards. It's not just because of the dirty cat that doesn't bath, but it's the fact that there's all sorts of death and decay around the leopard, and we don't have the stomach for it. And a lot of the cats also, they don't really wipe their bottoms too well, so all sorts of worms, nematodes and things like that might also be on the animal itself, and touching leopard or lion scat as well as their fur is something you have to be very careful of, because if we get any of those nematodes or interesting protozoa in our bodies, it could make us very, very sick. So ideally, you just need to be very careful. Not that we get the opportunity to touch these animals at all. Eric, I don't know if any of the wild animals actually get tick bite fever. It's something that domestic dogs in Africa get. They get biliary, which is caused by the tick bite fever tick, so to speak. I'm trying to think of the scientific name now, but it's eluded me. But I don't know of animals out here getting tick bite fever. I think they're quite well sort of versed in it. They've got quite an immunity. But a lot of the animals out here can get things like heart water, and there's a number of other tick-borne diseases that, once again, have eluded me. I was reading up about tick bite fever yesterday on humans, and now I'm being asked wonderful questions about tick diseases in animals, and I'm afraid I am not 100% versed on them, but I'll have a little look. Definitely heart water is one. There's a couple others that are found throughout South Africa that are associated with domestic as well as indigenous animals. Kendall, male ticks do feed as well, most definitely. Male and female ticks will arrive on the body. A lot of ticks are regarded as two-host ticks, which means that they'll start on a smaller animal. They will then be a sort of a nymphal stage there where the male and female is, I don't think they even are male and female at that stage, but will be the nymphal stage, and then they'll go on to a small animal like a steenbok or a scrub hare or something like that. They'll grow a little bit in size, and then they will fall off at one point, and they will pupate, or they will molt into a bigger tick. The adult ticks have got 8 legs, whereas the nymphs have got characteristically 6. And once they then get onto their second host, normally a much larger animal in the form of a buffalo or a zebra, sorry about that, a buffalo or a zebra, buffalo, giraffe, something like that, then the male and female will meet, they'll mate. She will obviously start producing the eggs, and while she's producing the eggs, she will gorge herself. It's just the vultures flying off. She'll gorge herself, and that is when they get big and fat like that. You don't see the males getting big and fat, but they will also gorge themselves so they never get big and fat, and their purpose after mating is pretty much done. The females will fall off after gorging themselves, lay eggs in the grass, and then they die. So once the male's mated with the female, essentially his job and his role is done. Okay, so we are going to go over to Taylor, who's managed to relocate on those big elephant. Thanks, Scotty. I hope you managed to get some more information on that beautiful male leopard, Hukumuri. And here we have got a beautiful scavenging bird, the hooded vulture. Once again, he's very interested in whatever Thamba's doing and hoping to maybe pick up some scraps. As disgusting as it might sound, I've seen how desperate these vultures can be around lions, and they actually, due to the amount of protein that the lions will ingest, they will actually feed on the feces of the lion because it's still very rich in blood and all sorts of protein. So, desperate times, I suppose, ladies and gentlemen. Desperate times. But maybe this individual is hoping to find some of that left over by Thamba. He has since dropped out of the tree. He dropped his carcass out of the tree, should I say. He did an elaborate catch of it with his paw, and off goes the vulture. Nice work, Sens. So we have Thamba just here again, doing his thing. He's now moved into the shade of a tree, and he is feeding on what seems to be left of his carcass. There's not too much of it. He fed on it to a point where both of the 2 front legs and the 2 back legs got separated, and so they fell off. Joan wants to know if the animals eat the hide of their kills, and they will often eat quite a bit of it. With their cutting teeth, those carnassial shear that they have enable them to cut sinew and bone, and the leopard often plucks most of the fur out of an animal before feeding. But yes, they will often eat a lot of the skin, but it also depends on the animal itself. A lot of buffalo skin is very hard to chew and ingest, so it is often left, but it also depends on who's doing the eating. When we watched the hyena come in the other night, they didn't bother for anything. They were breaking the bones, the ribs, breaking open the hip. And when you look at the crime scene evidence behind us, there is not a single scrap of anything left there, except for some stomach content and some feces. But Thamba is probably almost be able to break down the majority of this animal. Being a very brand new kudu, the bones are going to be very soft, and he'll most likely be able to break open a fair amount of the bones to feed on the marrow inside. And it is from time to time you will find leopard dung that is very white, same as lion dung, depending on when or if they fed on an entire carcass. And that happens quite regularly in the lambing season of the impala, where the leopard and the lion will eat the entire impala. Not a single thing is wasted because the bones are so soft. That is normally what prevents them from eating too much of the bone, is just the hardness of it, and then they leave them behind for that very powerful jaw of the hyena. So I was doing some reading up there on the diseases transferred by ticks in Africa, and most of them seem to really affect cattle. There are some indigenous diseases, as I mentioned, and animals are carriers of them. The domestic animals are prone to them. So heartwater is a disease that affects all sorts of cattle and a lot of antelope species, and it can be quite destructive on the environment. And when there are outbreaks, It's quite important for managers to implement controls that eliminate the spread of it. But most of what's happened in South Africa and Africa has got to do with the fact that the tick-borne diseases here affect the cattle and agricultural industry. So from that point of view, we can link ticks and cattle to the demise of the yellow-billed oxpecker, that through dipping and chemical control of ticks for livestock management, the oxpecker, especially the yellow-billed oxpecker, which almost completely disappeared off the map in South Africa because of these practices, they were ingesting ticks, they were ingesting poison off of the animals that they were cleaning, because they see a cow just like a buffalo. It is an animal that is carrying what they want to feed on, and over time the accumulation of those toxins in the bird led to them laying eggs that have very thin shell. And so not the adults themselves being declining, but the lack of successful breeding, because the shells would break on incubation. And so there was a massive decline in yellow-billed oxpeckers in the 90s and the early 2000s. They were almost non-existent. But now with EWT, they have reintroduced them from Botswana, and it is one of their major success stories. EWT is the Endangered Wildlife Trust, and they do all sorts of work with endangered wildlife and birds, and namely the oxpecker, the yellow-billed, and the ground hornbill. So we are going to stay here with this beautiful cat. Let's go over to Taylor with her elephant. Scotty, Thamba is enjoying what looks like the joint of the young kudu, getting maximum benefit out of it. Thanks to Judy H for sending me a very nice article on the reproductive success of leopards in the Sabi Sands. I'm busy giving it a read as we speak, but the general gist, what I've just read, a little segment there, was that as female leopards get older, they have lower cub success, and that basically stems around a lot to do with the fact that they relinquish their territories to their female offspring. So that could lead to the fact that they have less resources available to them. Could be maybe one of the major factors, and also the resources are a big limitation behind cub survival, and hence if her territory is smaller, she's got low resources. And then also the influence of male infanticide, so that means the male killing the cubs in preparation for, or in stimulating her to come into cycle. So there's definitely a period after a new male moves into the area where the female goes through basically a non-reproductive stage because of the instability. And it's something well known with lions as well, is that the females won't reproduce straight away, or the purpose of this multiple amounts of copulations. I mean, leopards on average, in a study done in Korongwe in the Lowveld, they in one copulation segment or period, courtship period, the leopard mated for about 4,200 times over about 2,000 hours. So that is enormous amount of copulations, and the success of those ovulations, or of the reproduction, should I say, the fertilization of the egg, is very, very low. Very, very low. And a lot of that's got to do with confusion. Confuse the male's not sure if it was his. And on average it took between 3 and 4 sort of courtship events for a female leopard to fall pregnant. So that is an enormous amount of mating that has to be underway before a female lion or a leopard will give birth. And a lot of that's got to do with uncertainty of who is in charge, because if a female falls pregnant after one mating and the male that has moved into the area has not actually staked his claim correctly, he might just be someone moving through, hasn't really fought off the resident or fought dominance or asserted dominance, then the chances are as soon as she falls pregnant and gives birth to a cub, that cub will get killed straight away. So that is one of the regulatory sort of things that leopards and lions go through. How they've worked it out is hard to say, but it's a lot of energy to raise a cub only to have it killed. Anita wants to know if female leopards go through menopause. I don't know, Anita. There's a lot of reproduction discussion today about leopards, and I'm learning as we go. And I think what happens is they get to a certain age, they don't necessarily go through menopause, they breed throughout their life. I think they might just eventually not have the resources or the energy to continue, and maybe they also get a bit slow, and they either get moved out or they possibly get caught by another predator, and the interspecific competition leads to the demise. There have been a few leopards that have gone missing over the years. No one ever really knows the true fate of that animal. But we here at Safari Live are striving to try and document the lives of these animals from start to finish. We know there's a lot of viewers back home that are watching constantly, and also how awesome it is that people can send me papers. Judy H. for sending me a very nice paper that I will read through and finish probably by this afternoon, so I might have some more updates and answers for you. But as the paper suggests, it's a paper on the success of reproduction. So reproductive success of female leopards, the importance of top-down process. And this is in the Sabi Sands. So what is interesting and what's important to note is that whatever book you read and whatever paper you read and whatever research you read, that is a specific study done in an area, specific area, or a specific species, or a specific individual in an area. So by no means are Kalahari leopards very similar in behavior to Sabi Sands leopards. So it's important to know that wherever you are, behavior might be quite different. So it needs to be area specific. So thanks, Judy H, for your article on the Sabi Sands. I will learn about it and get back to you. So we're going to go back over to Taylor, who's at the dam. And it's marvelous how everyone is posting and commenting on the social media. Definitely my social media accounts have changed, and my online presence is somewhere where it's never ever been before. Probably almost as high up as Thamba's online presence, because he is a world-renowned young male leopard who is at the moment busy chewing on some fur, and I think, as Senzo said, he might have got to the jelly of the matter and is chewing on one of those hooves. And I had a good look at the hooves, and they were untouched with that waxy layer, which means that this young animal died in birth. So, ladies and gentlemen, it has been a wonderful morning from myself and the rest of the crew at Wild Earth. We have been with Thamba, we have seen some some hooded vultures, and life is beautiful. Hopefully we find the Hukamori male, and this afternoon we'll be back on drive. Same team, same time. Have a beautiful afternoon and good morning, and we'll chat to you later.